right, hi everybody. So we'll get things started here. My name is Mindy. I'm with the South Windsor Alliance for Progress. I am the Community Outreach Coordinator. For those who don't know, the South Windsor Alliance for Progress is a diverse group of South Windsor residents who hold democratic values and actively support candidates and elected officials who believe that equal rights for all benefit the common good. We formed after the Women's March with the goal to educate, inspire, empower, and to get people more active in their communities, including turning up at the polls. But we had a pretty good year. So far we've been doing good. Blue wave since then. So some of the past events we've had have been about immigration rights, and we had one on healthcare. I think John Larson spoke at that one. And actually 1 year ago, this is like our anniversary of our very first event. It actually was for Women's History Month, and it was another women's event. And we had May Flexer, and who else spoke that one? Susan Yolen from Planned Parenthood. And it was a really great event. So we're back again, once again celebrating Women's History Month. And we thank everybody for coming, for all your interest. So this particular, in the past we've had more like formal panel events, and this time we were inspired by the Drinking Liberally group over in Windsor, and we wanted to have a little bit more of an informal, fun event where people can kind of socialize and network, and just have a couple of really great speakers, which we do have tonight, and we'll get to that shortly. If you've noticed, and I think some of you have already been kind enough to give some donations. We do have some jars around the room. For the past year, all the events we've had has come totally out of our pockets. We've not had any fundraisers. We've not really asked for any money. If you don't have cash on you tonight, that's fine. I never carry cash. But you can go to our website at www.southwindsorallianceforprogress.com, and we do have a donate button there, which includes PayPal.
.org actually.
What's that?
Sorry, .org.
.org. I'm sorry. I knew I was going to say that.
We're at org.
Before we get started, I do want to give a big, big, big thank you to Cindy Canto, who is the owner of this bookstore. Amazing progressive resistor in this community, and allows us to use your space whenever we need it, especially if we can't get to the library. And so here we are tonight, and again, I appreciate you all for being here. So the two speakers we have tonight are two really wonderful women. We're going to start with Jacqueline. So we have Jacqueline Kozin. I'm going to read you a little bit Jacqueline before she gets up here. She was the first in her family to graduate college, earning a master's in international affairs degree from Columbia University. After graduation, she remained in Manhattan working for an organization that supported the work of human rights activists around the world. Impacted by 9/11 attacks, Jacqueline returned home to New Haven to achieve her childhood dream of running for elected office. But she fell in love with managing and running campaigns instead. She was proud of her record of never losing a race she led, including both campaigns for State Comptroller Kevin Lembo. Until recently, she served as Comptroller Lembo's Director of Intergovernmental and Community Affairs. She currently works for Ned Lamont as his political director, who is running for governor. Jacqueline is the founder of the Connecticut Democratic Party's Women's Caucus, and recently founded Ella's List, a PAC dedicated to providing support to Democratic women running for a municipal elected office. The goal of the PAC is to help build the bench of amazing Democratic women to not only run for office, but also manage campaigns. She has fought for equality as co-president of the Connecticut chapter of the National Organization for Women, CT Now, and vice chair of the Women's Caucus of YDA, chair of the Narrow Pro-Choice Connecticut PAC, co-chair of PCSW's Young Women's Leadership Program, and co-president of Connecticut Young Democrats. She serves on the national board of the National Organization for Women, as well as its PAC. She serves as chair of their Equal Rights Amendment ERA committee and focused on finally passing the ERA. She's known for always reminding her team, si puede,
Si se puede.
no matter what the challenge is. Here's Jacqueline Kozin. Hi everybody, I'm Jacqueline Kozin. You've learned that. South Windsor is a very special place for me. I had the privilege of working on Saud Anwar's state rep campaign last year. No, 2016. It's 2018 now. I don't want to go back in time and experience that again, but Saud's a great leader, and I had some great women to work with. Betty Canal, there's Elizabeth and Sandy and Linda. It was great, and I think it was and Mindy too came out and knocked like crazy.
That's when I first appeared.
Yes, awesome. So
I guess, so tonight trying to be inspiring to all of you. I think a lot of people are inspired, but recently I posted a quote on my Facebook wall for International Women's Day that said the most common way people lose their power is by thinking that they don't have any. It's by Alice Walker. I have goosebumps because I remind myself at least 3 times a day with that quote when I'm working for Ned and you're feeling a little bit, you know, some resistance coming your way that doesn't make sense to you. But I think that a lot of people felt that in 2016 when the person that should be president did not win. And, you know, Donald Trump getting elected really made people pause, I think. And I came back here in 2003 to start working on campaigns. I've been doing it for 15 years. And when I'd be out talking to people, I loved it. I just loved having communication with them. And they'd always be like, why am I going to get engaged in politics? It doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter what I'd say. And I said, no, it does, because your elected officials have to listen to you. And they do when you go and engage and call them and tell them, you know, I want you to support this bill. I want you to not support this other bill. And they didn't seem to buy onto that. And I would always find it so frustrating. I worked for a state senator, Ed Meyer, who I'd like to say was a little mavericky up there. He was a Democrat from the shoreline area, Branford, Guilford way, and he always voted how his constituents spoke to him, how they wanted him to vote. I would get the Democratic caucus all up in my grill being like, you need to get him to change his vote. And I'm like, he's doing it for his constituents. If you still want him here, then you gotta let him vote how he needs to vote. So, so it's been really quite wonderful to see all of this activism that's happening. I was involved with the Women's March. I organized 80 buses to go down to DC. I will never do that again. It was exhausting, and I, you know,
Thank
we
you.
rode in the bus. Yeah, thank you. It was great, and I, you know, being down there, I'm like, oh, look I helped make this happen. It was a lot of work, and I think coming off that 2016 election, I'd done a lot of work for Hillary. I worked on Saud, who wasn't successful, and that was frustrating because it was for reasons that had nothing to do with him. And you see just these masses of people out in the streets saying no more. They're taking back their power, and I find it so encouraging. And so women are definitely making the difference. Women of color changed the Alabama Senate race.
Yes.
They're the reason why we are lucky to have a Democrat in there. They're the reason why we need to continue this conversation and pull everybody into the table and elevate everyone. And I would love to have more conversations with you, because I think, honestly, as a Democrat operative, it's really hard to get into those communities to bring people along. And honestly, anybody has trouble really picturing themselves in a political career. And I just kind of happened into it. And I wanted to run for office and found, no, I want to run behind the scenes. So it's another way people can be involved. But you know, 350% increase in the number of women who are running for the U.S. House of Representatives. Prior to that, women had to be asked an average of 7 times if they would run for office. And the Democratic parties were not going out and asking women to run for office. It was their friends. It was, you know, people saying, no, you need to run, you need to run. And I'm sure Susan Eastwood, who has run up in the northeast corner representing, her last election, she ran for state rep, lost by, I always mess this up, what's that? 46. I was saying 36. I don't know. I'm giving you an extra 10. You know, yeah, 36 votes, and she's doing it again this year. So anyway, it's been nice, and I appreciate all of the activism that's been going on. It's definitely getting more women to run for office here in Connecticut. Last municipal cycle, I know New Britain had 13 women running for the city council, which was just totally impressive. I counted up last night because I was like, how many women are running here in Connecticut? I counted, there's primaries going on, but I counted 47 women, Democratic women, because the Republican women I'm not listening to until they renounce Trump and all those values. They don't mean anything to me, I'm sorry. being filmed.
No.
But I'm
He's a
sorry,
good
but
editor.
you know, when you have a person stand up there and think it's okay to grab women by, you know, their body parts, and it's just completely normal, and other people support that, I can't do that. And women need to stand up and say, not in my house, that's not happening. So, anyway, I feel like I'm all over the place, rambly, but it's been amazing to see. I started Ella's List because I was kind of tired of going around town to town. I've done, you know, multiple statewide campaigns, and it was always the women who were making the stuff happen. You would see it at DTC meetings. The men would be chairs or vice chairs or whatever, and you would know when you asked, well, who should I talk to? It was always a woman. And so that really made an impression on me. And at the municipal level, I felt really frustrated that our Democratic Party didn't give as much support to that ground level, because that's really where women come in and elevate up to higher positions. So I started a PAC with a group of amazing women who have been working politically in the state for a while. And last year we endorsed 31 candidates who were running at the chief elected office, and 21 of them won. So it was a really great year, and we're continuing that work. We only focus municipally, so this year, because we're a PAC, we can't do anything legislatively, but we're hoping to do some fundraising so that next year we can expand to the down ballot races as well, because Town Council, Board of Ed, and Board of Finance are equally important. So, you know, one of my favorite people that I've come to admire is Shirley Chisholm. She was the first African-American woman to be a congressperson, and she said, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. And I think that that's something that we're seeing, and I thank you all for your activism. I'm here to ask questions. I don't know if there's anything else I should address, Mindy, or we do questions after?
I was gonna have you and Ann do them at the same time, but if you
Yeah.
guys have questions now,
That's
that's
perfectly.
Cool.
Question? Yeah, and I'm a campaign hack, so I've also learned that running for office, I don't know if it's necessarily a good fit for me, because I think they throw me out because I'm not a patient person. And you know, when there's really good legislation in front of you, you don't think you should raise it because it takes 5 years to pass legislation. I am just not good with that. So I thought, you know, I think behind the scenes is a better way for me to go. And I know everybody's pushing women, run, but I'm looking for staff on my campaign, and I cannot find hardly any women. So if anybody knows anybody, and especially women of color, I've been trying to reach out to areas, links groups, sororities. It's important, so think about it. And being a chief of staff or being an elected official, those positions are just as important, because the perspective that you bring matters hugely. So I think I'll wrap it on that. I wanted to end on Shirley Chisholm, and I babbled, but you know, I'll come up with another quote, I'm sure, another time. But I appreciate it. I'm here for questions or whatever, advice, or you can give me advice.
So, I'm a community activist from Hartford, and actually on your competitor's campaign. But, you know, one of the things that I find is, even though we've been able to staff our campaign with, you know, women, people of color, young people, that type of thing, there's always still a mistrust that, actually it's more of a distrust, that, you know, when someone is coming into the community, because there's been this consistent, we'll vote, come vote for us, come vote for us, come vote for us, and then we will do these things for you, and then nothing happens. And so, you know, there are some of us who, you know, we have our own businesses where, you know, we're working, you know, high-paying jobs, you know, that type of thing, and we can go out and access the information. But, you know, people who are, you know, struggling with poverty and, you know, they're new to the country because they just got here and they have a language issue, or whatever the other reasons are why they are living in a depressed situation, they can't receive that. And so when over time we keep going in and saying, hey, you know, vote for this person, things will get better, vote for this person, things will get better, and then nothing gets better, that's why they don't engage in the process. And so, like you, I've been pushed over and over to run, and I want to only work campaigns, because I think that's where we as women really do have our power. we can influence who goes up, who, you know, like, and you serve time in office and then you're done. But if you're working behind the scenes and you're activating people and you're the consistent face that comes to your community, no matter who's running, over time they learn to trust you. And then they follow you. And so that's basically the strategy that I've engaged in. I got the mayor in Hartford, he was voted in. And, you know, that was a tough one because we're not even talking about white saviorism tonight. You know? So that, you know, that was a tough one. But it was, how do you get this person? And now it's clean up the mess now because he promised to stay and now he's leaving. He told us he was going to stay and now he's leaving. But it's that trust. It's that is what's hard. And I find it even as a person of color that sounds different, that looks different, that's from, you know, another country, that has, you know, our level of education. Like it's a whole different speak that you have to address, and a whole different comfort you now have to give again, because these people have been disenfranchised over and over and over and over.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. And I think the other thing too is that in just working with different candidates, it's not over when you get elected, because I've had people say, you know, I feel completely alone because everybody just left now. Like I had a whole team of support to get me elected, and then they just take off, and it's like I have some serious decisions to make. I still have communities I have to reach out to, and that's where your staff hiring makes a huge difference. Yes. Because, you know, I've worked with people like Senator Meyer, who would continue to go out into his communities, have office hours, let people know, go to libraries, but I do think that it needs to be a little bit more intense, where you have to go to the doors and you have to talk to people. Exactly, because people are busy and they're not paying attention. I think people are now starting to pay attention, but I think when you're working 3 jobs and you're trying to get your kids to stay in school, and you're trying to put food on the table, and you're trying to put gas in your car, or, you know, have money to take the bus, there's just so much that you can do. And I think I personally think it's an obligation of government to make sure that they represent all their citizens and get out there. So and that's the thing, like, after the election, it's not, and I think 2017 we're seeing it's not over, you know, so.
And that's where community organizing really comes in, and that's, I mean, I'm a politician now, I guess, but I didn't start as a politician. I'm a community organizer, and I tended to organize around environmental issues, but now I'm organizing around education issues, and you still fall into it, and like even getting people, and I'll stop here because I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I got involved as a parent organizer because in the school system in Hartford, they were talking about closing schools and, you know, moving all these things around, and so I worked really hard to get people to come out and listen to the people running for Board of Ed. And then I went down to the polls to count how many people actually voted. I'm looking, and in the district where we were going to lose the most schools, 1 person voted. That was me. And at 4 o'clock I walked in and she's like, "You're back again." I'm like, "I just want to see if anybody else came." She's like, "It's been a trickle." And she's like, "Only 1 other person from your district voted." But I had forums. I went to the door. I called people. I showed up at PTOs. I showed up at SGCs. It's important. You need to have a voice. You need to have a voice. Your children matter.
Would anybody go along with you? Like, were people, I mean, I know people are busy, but
there's a group of us. I trained some people to, you know, be organizers as well and go out with me. And, you know, like, but people just, the biggest thing is the presidential election is what matters to a lot of people. And they don't see that your local is what matters more.
It is.
And so it's a reframe of education that we need to do with everybody, and it has nothing to do with color or poverty or anything, because only those of us who are aware actually vote more than, you know.
Yeah, and I think when I worked on a state Senator Meyer's race, everybody was coming in wanting to call for Barack Obama, and I was like, well, yeah, but your state senator and your state rep actually have a greater impact on your life than Barack Obama did. Like, whatever, I love, he's, you know, Barack Obama. You know, somebody had a sweatshirt on and was walking down the street. I live in Hartford as well. and it was Barack Obama in the back. I was like, I love your sweatshirt. I'm so sorry. She was just like, I was like, I don't know. It was like weird. I saw his face, and I just got so excited.
Like, what is wrong with her?
I know. She was just like, okay, thank you. But you know, and it was interesting. I was and I think now I start now hearing people talk about how the Senate is tied here, and if we have a Republican Senate, you can forget anything that upholds progressive values from happening. Imagine if we have a Republican governor and that's the way that it is. It's kind of a scary thought, and I think people are now realizing that. And just on the Barack Obama bit, I was recently, I saw something about the neighborhood organizing model, and I was like, oh, what is that? And I happened to Google, and it was in Barack Obama's campaign, and it was basically taking a neighborhood and organizing itself. And I think that if we did more of that, what you're talking about, I think would happen, because it's like, these are your neighbors, these are who you share this space with, and help bring it out and keep the conversations going post-election. So I don't know. That's just something I literally just, I'm intrigued.
It does. Like, I don't know if you guys heard of the No More Slumlords campaign, Emmanuel Coup. That was our neighborhood organizing. There's 7 of us that organize. You know, we have a lot of organizing going on, and now I'm starting in New Britain, you know, to get things organized in the North Oak area, because, you know,
Come to Vernon.
I will. No problem.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, I'm gonna stop. And
That's all I do.
So our next speaker is Ann Pratt. She's the Director of Organizing at Connecticut Citizens Action Group, and also serves as the coordinator for the DUE Justice Alliance, field manager for the Protect Our Care CT campaign, which I just saw you at a couple weeks ago. They had a legislative day, and my daughter got to participate in that, which was awesome. And co-facilitator for the Medicaid Strategy Group. And brings 30 years of community organizing experience to the field of organizing, including 10 years of building and directing a diverse range of community organizations, including neighborhood organizations, large social service agency, labor unions, regional faith-based organizing initiatives, and statewide parent and child advocacy organization. And has served as the director of the Progressive States Network, the Connecticut Early Childhood Alliance, and statewide advocacy organization committed to improving outcomes for young children and CT Parent Power. She has worked extensively on advancing progressive policies in Connecticut, including the nationally recognized sustenance healthcare legislation, and recently spearheaded an initiative calling for the creation of a Department of Early Education that would serve children from birth to 5 years of age. Ann's extensive history of organizing includes working with the Greater Hartford Interfaith Coalition for Equity and Justice, a regional faith-based organization, serving as the executive director of Hartford Area's Rally Together, a 25-year-old community organization working to improve the quality of life for Hartford residents, and serving as a national trainer for Building One America, an organization committed to addressing social inclusion, environmental sustainability, and economic growth. This is why I wanted her tonight, because she's fabulous. So everybody, welcome Ann.
I'm honored to be here. This is a great group of women and powerful women, and I so enjoyed your talk. It was great. Really, really wonderful. So I would like to spend this amount of time, because we have some people who are interested in organizing, and that speaks to my passion and to my heart, as Mindy spoke about. As a matter of fact, I started my organizing career. This is really going to expose how old I am. You were talking about how young you are.
I was talking about how old.
I heard young because of your age.
Or I feel old.
So I left Connecticut to go to a program in Cleveland, Ohio in 1979.
Wow.
And I was reading a book by Saul Alinsky, who was the birth father of the guru. And I was reading a book about Saul Alinsky as I was driving out to this sort of undergraduate program, and I hooked up with this organizing network in Cleveland that was actually funded by the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church actually did some pretty cool stuff. They funded organizing, and it was all an Alinsky-based model of organizing. I was 21 years old, and there I was in Cleveland, and And Dennis Kucinich, people know
Yeah.
Dennis Kucinich?
Yeah.
He was the mayor at that time.
Oh, my God.
And we were organizing
Department of Peace.
communities in all over Cleveland. They were organizing communities. And actually, Dennis Kucinich was the target. And it was about reinvestment in the community. And I went to a community meeting. There were 750, predominantly women, Latino, African American, white, and they filled that basement hall. And there was Dennis Kucinich, and they were in front of that room. And these women were like so incredibly powerful, and they were running that meeting. They were really running that meeting. I mean, they were basically challenging Dennis Kucinich to commit to reinvestment in the neighborhood. That neighborhood was being redlined by insurance companies, by banks, the entire cities, and these women saying, we want you to give us a commitment that you're going to invest in this community and you're going to stop redlining. And he refused. He started to take over the meeting. So the women started to actually try and wrestle the mic from Dennis Kucinich. And Dennis Kucinich was having none of it, and there was actually a fist fight on the stage, and chairs were being brought up by the organizers and things. But for me, 21, who was reading a book by Solinsky, and I was just like, died and gone to heaven. The revolution is here. So I dropped out of college, and I ended up living in Cleveland for 20 years doing community organizing. So that's a little bit about my story, and it continues to be deep in the heart of what I feel is great. And it's been so really interesting to hear this conversation, because it's women running for office and this whole movement about running for office. And again, 1979, I was an organizer. I was on the outside, not the inside. And we really our job was to hold public officials accountable. We went after public officials. We went after corporations. It was our job as organizers to do the outside organizing and bring people from the community, say, this is our issues. You have to commit to making a difference and organizing groups. So we kind of were very dismissive about running for office until I got into the faith-based community organizing network called the Gamaliel Foundation. It's also like IF and PICO. You might have been familiar with that. But the Gamaliel Foundation is actually where Barack Obama was trained. And so they were actually pretty clear about you need to do both. You need to do outside organizing to create a movement, to hold things accountable, and you also need to do the inside work. And that's the model that we've been, I've been working with. And so what I want to do right now, and my apologies, I usually have flip charts, right, and magic markers, but I'm actually running 3 different jobs right now, so so imagine I have a flip chart, so use your imagination. And what I'd like to do is take you through a bit of a process of the kind of training that I do and have done for the last 20 years with community organizers and community leaders in rooms like these. But Mindy and others who've seen me do this, I'm going to do this in 15 minutes, and it is a training that we do for a week. It's a week long, 6 weeks. You could, So you got something there.
Is that you?
We do a week-long training, faith-based, but we're also adapting it for community organizers. But it's wrestling with the concepts that I want to wrestle with you all for a brief moment. And Mindy, where are you, Mindy? So really, give me time. I mean, cut me off, because I can get really wrapped up into
Get in the weeds. We want you there.
So again, this is a training that we do over a week, so I'm just going to give you a little appetizer. But the most important thing for me is I really do look at the world through this lens. And it is a bit different than the campaign lens and the electoral lens, but I do think that they're hand in glove and need to be integrated in the very way that I see the heads nodding, inside game, outside game, and how can we make those things reflect and mirror each other effectively. So the first thing that I encourage people who are building community organizations, because that's what I want to do, is I want to build accountable, community-based organizations of people who can kind of go through the hard times of when you lose an election or you lose an issue campaign, but you're still there, you're still plugging away, you're doing that relationship building. So this is the kind of training. So first and foremost, what I start out with is my clipboard says I'm going to write up the word values. So if you imagine the kind of world, the kind of state, the kind of community that you want to have, what does that look like? What's it look like? So you're out here, you're doing this stuff, right? You're involved, you're political, you're here tonight. Why are you here tonight? And what is it that what is the vision that you all have for the community and the society that you want to create? What's it look like? Shout out a couple of things. What does this have? What's a
dignity.
What?
Human dignity.
Human dignity. Inclusive schools. Sustainability in terms of the collaboration.
Environment.
Equal pay.
Yeah.
Equal pay. Paid family
See, I
medical.
came off in 72 with the ERA, so
Yeah.
we're going way
How
back.
about everybody gets health insurance?
Health
right?
insurance.
You got it. Real voting rights.
Real voters, so a real democracy where everybody has a voice, right?
Yes.
You said education, like equity, like real equity, like a place that doesn't have systemic racism, right? School to prison pipelines, like a place that doesn't have, people being shot in the streets.
Right.
Right.
In the schools or in the churches
Schools,
or in the homes.
yes, where we can walk in and we don't feel like we're criminals. Right? Or like it's a, it's a war camp. I walked into some schools recently. It scares the hell out of me. So, okay,
Support for people with mental health,
mental health, absolutely.
no stigma,
No
Yeah,
stigma.
no stigma.
more help.
More health overall. So, those are the kinds of things we might spend a long time kind of articulating, and as a group, even if come from different places, different races, different classes, different political parties even, if we can talk about what are the kind of values that are important, equality, justice, democracy, a voice, safe living, equal pay, those kinds of things, we can become pretty clear that this is the kind of thing that we're all down, right? And it's exciting to talk about what's important in those values. So values is at the top of the organizing ladder, and to have a conversation about values. And then the next piece is we talk about what is it that you need in order to bring your values into your community, into your state, and into your country or into the world. What is the core thing that we need to have in order to have those values become true?
An understanding.
Mutual respect. Support.
Collaboration.
Organized power.
Who said that? You need to have power. You need to have power. You are not going to be able, sure you could get a little thing here and there, but at the end of the day, who has power in this country and who just dismantled one of the most successful, not perfect, but pretty good healthcare system that covered another, I don't know how many people ACA covered, right? Just is, we want a little bit, but he's dismantling it bit by bit, piece by piece, right? So who's got power now, right? And what is he doing? He's bringing he and his Republican minions are bringing in a whole set of new values. Transgender, gay rights, immigration, right? All of those values that we had for 8 years are being, and that's why we're here tonight, right? Because he's got power. So how do we feel about that word power? How do we feel? How do we feel about that word?
When it's used right, it's good.
Okay.
It's used
That's
for-
right now, it's pretty subjective.
It's not, the power now doesn't make me feel, well, first to me, it doesn't make me feel very happy.
What's your name?
Jill?
Jill. And how do you feel personally about power?
I really don't have much, unfortunately.
Okay.
You get overwhelmed and say, well, I can't do a lot, but
And do you want more?
to fix some of the problems, yeah.
So you want power.
Well, not just me, but I'd like to see it still better, used in a better way, I think, it's being used correctly.
So for Jill, I want you to really think about that. I mean, yeah, power can be good and it can be bad, but I wanted us to kind of think a little bit about how does it feel for me? So Jill, are you really out to get some power?
think I need to.
You need to, okay, good, all right. And I sense a little caution and hesitancy.
Well, yeah.
Okay, how about others? What do you think?
Well, it just occurred to me that it scares some people.
And how about you?
Doesn't scare me.
So it doesn't scare you? You have no
maybe it does
problem
a
with
little.
power?
Maybe it does a little. No, I'm sure it does a little bit. Because you feel like, oh, have I gone too far?
Have you gone too far?
Do I?
But do men ask themselves that question?
No, I'm sure they don't.
No, I don't. I want power. I want it now.
Okay. But I'm unpack in different ways. So you're pretty clear. And then just like there are people in the room, and just be really honest about it. And you know, frankly, this is part of my struggle as an organizer that I've had to deal with, and as a woman who was, grew up in the '60s, right? When, you look at the '60s movies and what men were okay doing and what the role of women, and I'm like, wow. So, and that power thing is something I continue to. So I want to dig a little deep. What more about how you feel about power for you yourself, as Jill, and what's your name? Elizabeth, do you want power?
I want it, but I think the rest of my thought was that it's not that I'm scared of it, it's that the responsibility that goes along with it.
Amen. Amen. That's right. Anybody else? Yeah.
Some people I don't think.
Okay, I'm going to do her and then you go. Go ahead. MJ?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, what I feel about power, of course I want power, but I want to be responsible about it, and I want it to be balanced, because power needs to flow. It can't just stand still, because when it stands still, it explodes, and most of the people, well, a number of the people that power was directed at can get very hurt. So the power of taking away power from others, such as what's happening in some policies in the national realm of Medicare, insurances. But then there's the opposite side of power of being positive, like having gay rights be valid in the United States. So there's a balance of power. But when someone has power, it needs to be reined, it needs to be taken care of, and it needs to be nurtured by support.
All true. And then MJ, to you, how do you personally feel about power? To really unpack that. Be honest. Because it's going to screw us if we're not clear about how we feel about power.
Yeah.
And we have to be really honest. I mean, thank goodness people have talked about the responsibility, right?
Yeah.
It's hard. How many people in this room have actually been in a position of power? Okay, how about you? What position were you in?
So I was president of my local teachers union, and then on the statewide board of directors.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what happens when you're in a position of power? What kind of responsibility do you have in that place?
You have to listen. You got to listen.
Okay.
But you're also responsible for other people.
You can't step back too much. You can't be overwhelmed by the other powerful people that you're dealing with. And in my position, because my power dealt with my bosses, I had to sit across from them and say, now we're equal. We're at the negotiating table, dealing with a non-renewal, whatever. You're my boss out of this room, but in this room, I'm your equal. And I'm going to call you by your first name if you're going to call me by my first name.
Or if in your room and you've got power and you actually have, some either hiring or firing or supervision, I mean, those things are, or managing some sort of campaign, and that campaign has to make some decisions about, do we do this or do we do that, and how do we impact people's lives? And that's why I like to connect the two things really clearly about values and power, right? And those two things, you need them to be in relationship with each other almost on a daily basis. What are my values? What's my goal? And do I have the power to actually advance those goals. And sometimes those conflict, right? We all know it. So, but to be so clear with ourselves, it's like, to take it back to the most simplistic, I hate to even do this, but if you're on a diet, or you want to work out, or you want to get healthy. I know, I hate to do that, but it's sort of what.
I struggled with eating like chocolate almonds yesterday. Sorry.
Well, and why do I bring it up? It's sort of like the dailiness of it, the moment ofness, and sort of to keep that goal and to what are we building? It's like this muscle that we always have to. But to think about it as like embracing the desire for it. Like even in this room right now, there's a lot of hesitation because what is it that we think of people who have power normally, and as women, let's expose it all, but people who are powerful and act powerfully, what oftentimes is our judgment on them? What kind of people are there? If we say we are engaged with a power-hungry person, what kind of person is that? Arrogant?
Controlling.
Distrustful.
And if they're women, they have totally, what is a power-hungry woman usually called? Right? And we're marginalized and we're vilified. What?
They're a balls cutter.
And again, since I thank you for the men who are here. I don't want to, but I do want to speak from the place of, we sabotage ourselves when we're not embracing our power, when we let things go, when we know we shouldn't let them go, right? Because we should be nice, or we should be accommodating, or we shouldn't please. People pleaser. How many people have a disease of being a people pleaser, right? Oh, look at all this. And, not to say we don't want to create good places, and, we want a loving environment, but it's very different when you're a people pleaser. It's a different goal, right? That's a hard struggle. So I'm just saying to spend time unpacking and understanding this when you're in the public arena, and the other thing that's really important to me is to get other women and other people, men too, who are with me in this struggle. I am at this moment trying to figure out, I know strategically that this is what I should do, and this will advance our power, my own power, but I need some help, I need some help to sort of work with me on that.
I think that's a really important thing, because I think when you were asking each of us individually how we felt about it, we don't want to think of only ourselves as being powerful. That's my opinion. I think we want power to be shared.
Okay.
And that's part of what you're saying, I think. We need to be sharing it.
And it is a theme that we spend a lot of time in training on, because it is not easy and it's not complicated. I mean, it is complicated in that I think if we are people who will say we don't really want power for ourselves, that's not always necessarily a good idea. You want to have some power for yourself, right? You were pretty clear about that.
We love you, Jerome.
And you
can't apologize. You need to be you.
See, and so here's where I do this. So I kind of have to make it a little.
do you?
We really still in this room, even though we just had this discussion, still don't understand what power is. Power is simply the ability to act.
That's exactly right. That was my
That's
next
it.
thing. That was it. What is
So
the definition?
All of us have power.
Right.
Now, do we act together or do we act separately? What do we have more impact doing?
Yep.
So I'm gonna stop because you're doing it.
No, you're doing my training for me. I love it. Come up here, please. But to your point, what's your name again?
Bavard.
What's it?
Bavard.
Bavard. So to Bavard's point, it's really true when you think about it. That's the definition of power. Who does not want to have the ability to act? Right. Why do we spend so much time going, oh, I don't want any ability to act? Which is what we're saying. I don't want power for myself.
because the model is that it's been abused, and people, when they hear power, they think about power over, as opposed to an energy that exists in a neutral way that's available to everyone.
Right. And because we don't claim our power and we don't claim our ability to act, it's almost like we're kind of hanging there with a little bit of crippleness to us, and we're imposing that on ourselves because we don't.
Because there's all these negative connotations. You're sleazy and you're untrustworthy and you're all that
We're
stuff
not
we said already.
modeling for our next generation, and that's critical.
You had something to say, and I cut you off. Do you have something? You jumped in. What was you were thinking there? How's this conversation for you?
No, it's good because I feel like for me, I definitely feel like I'm definitely more of an introvert, but I'm definitely someone who acts and will get things done. But I'm definitely more of an independent person, and I think why I shy away from any power is that I probably put more on myself to be accountable and really think about things to make a good decision. So it's a lot of pressure for me to take the power of other folks too. And I think what crossed my mind was that guy in the White House. I feel like he has a lot of power, but he doesn't. What pisses me off is I don't feel like I'm a detailed person. He doesn't think about anything or think about consequences, and that irritates me to no end, because someone having power who doesn't think of consequences of other people or who doesn't take accountability, like lack of accountability is like my biggest pet peeve with people.
So do you want enough power? Do you want enough power in which you can actually create systems of accountability?
I think that's why I'm here. I think my personality, it's so uncomfortable for me because it's just not in my nature. But I think more so, I find myself arguing with Facebook people who I went to high school with.
And use your power.
And so the question is, so the question is, are you getting more powerful because of what you're doing? And that is think about it, but then we have to go to your point. So we've defined what power is, right? So then the next piece of the ladder is, what is the source of power? Because you can't build power unless you know what the source of power is. Right. And in organizing, there are two sources of power. One, what many people running for office need. Most importantly, when they need two things when they run for office. Money. But they need organized money. Organized money is better money, right? Right? A lot of organized. I keep looking at you because you're campaigning. So, and what else? Organized money, votes,
Confidence.
votes, and who votes? People. Right? Organized people, organized money. That is the source of power in the public arena. So if you know that that's the source of power in the public arena, what you do as an organizer, what you do as a good politician is, that's what you do. You connect people who are connected with people. Like, I was a faith-based organizer, so I wanted to be in really good relationships with as many powerful, effective pastors. Why? What do pastors have access to? People, and sometimes money, right?
Money.
So people and money, right? So that is a good constituent base. You're a neighborhood organizer. You need to go out and organize a whole lot of people. Labor people, what do they organize? What do labor unions organize? Workers, yeah, right? For better. So again, so organize. So that is the source. So when you think of yourself as, is this advancing my power? Am I becoming more powerful? This part of the step is, do I have more access to organized people and organized money?
Do you mean thinking very strategically about how you right? Use your resources.
Use your resources, build your resources, is that's advancing in service of a collective value, right? But I hear this like, but that seems so selfish, which is another component of the ladder. So we got values, we have power, the source of power, organized people, organized money. So then the question is, how do you organize? And let's just focus on people, because in community organizing, the money is a little bit harder to come by. So, but if you organize people, how is it that you organize people? In what way do you get people in relationship with yourselves and building an organization? And in the line of organizing that I operate from is the next thing on the bulletin board would be we organize people out of their self-interest. That people act oftentimes out of their self-interest, right? So it's about understanding our own self-interest. Like, do you want to be powerful and why do you want to be powerful? So understanding your own self-interest that drives you to get in relationship with other people based upon their self-interest. Now, I got to say, my hands are not clean on this. Oftentimes, I will do a campaign, and what it's about is mobilizing. And mobilizing is very different than organizing. Right. Mobilizing is, here's an issue, you should get involved. Come, right? Call, AstroTurf, flyers. But I don't know if they're really, I don't know what their interests are. True organizing is about developing relationships based upon self-interest, but also embracing self-interest just as you embrace power. Now, how many people actually think that embracing self-interest is a good idea? So let's unpack that word. Self-interest. How does that feel? If you are called a very self-interested person, what would people then just, what comes up? What comes to mind?
They think I'm mean or bitchy, but I don't care.
So you don't care, so that's good, but
Selfish.
selfish. So self-interest in our society is usually connoted with people who are self-interested are what? They're selfish, they're, what other kind of thing? Self-involved, egotistical, what?
Narcissistic.
Self-care, narcissistic, right?
But men are always self-interested and nobody calls them on it. They're never.
Exactly.
So that's why I have a problem with that. Like, women are always asked to self-sacrifice and give for the greater good. Men do it all the time for themselves and nobody calls them on it. So that's not, no, get that.
But what I want to do is draw out the fact that self-interested in this society is about selfish, greedy, narcissistic. So if that's bad in this society, then what is honored if selfish is what's bad, what is the better thing to honor?
Selfless.
Selfless. How many people go to church and taught to be selfless is a good thing, right? How many people have been raised that selfless is good, right?
Yes.
And you just said that you spend a lot of time thinking about others, or we talk a lot about doing for others, or doing all the things, like the women, right? The women are the ones who jump in and do everything, right? That's selfless, right? Now, does that do us any good? How many times do you get really burned out when you
All the time.
And frankly, if I hang out with somebody who's truly, truly selfless a whole lot of times, or most of the time, I gotta tell you, I wanna take a shower. Like, you go out to dinner, you say, yeah, let's go out to eat. Where do you wanna eat? I don't care, whatever you want. Let's go see a movie.
What do you want to see?
What do you wanna see? I don't care, right? It's like, there's nothing there. Now, and the point about this, and this is what it gets to self-interest, and this is the fundamental core of organizing for me, is if you have selfish on this side and selfless on this side, right? What is denied in the selfish, if you're talking about a relationship with a selfish person, what's denied in the selfish person? Like, if a relationship is self and other, what's denied?
The other person.
The other person. And in the selfless, what's denied? Self. So there's no relationship there, right? You're having a relationship with yourself and trying to invite other people into having that relationship. Or you're having no relationship with yourself and bringing in. So self-interest in our line is self and other together in a relationship based on some sort of discovered, explored self-interest, a common self-interest. And it's most exciting, in my experience, is when people are really clear about what their self-interest is, and another person is really clear, and you cut a deal, right? We have these experiences, right? You must have them. Like, people in the public arena who are clear and who've run or in public office, you can have a meeting with them, you know what you want, you're in there, how about this, how about that, we'll cut it, done, 10 minutes, you got a deal, right? People in communities, people we organize, us, you know, we're not there. We don't, because we don't kind of think about, oh yeah, I got a self-interest, I want to be more powerful, I want to run an organization, I want to get, you know, more money from my organization, and I want to be able to call some shots, right? And this is a good thing, and I want to be at the center of that. That's scary because it's responsibility, but it's also you're making things happen. So that is community organizing. Now the other piece, that the fundamental piece on that is when you talk about self-interest and having relationships based upon self-interest, we then do a whole 2 days on having people think about what the hell is my self-interest, right? What is it? What do I want? How many, and I gotta tell you, I've been doing this work for 25 years, and I go to a training, and I have this conversation. It's a different group of women, a different group of people, and I think about my self-interest all the time. And I reflect on it. Is it happening? Why is this my self-interest? I mean, 20 years, I'm still doing it. And it's a great place and a great thing to be involved in. And you want to do that, so really clear about what you want, why you want it, how you're going to get it. And then once you do that, then to be engaged in a conversation with another human being about what's your self-interest. And how do you find that out is basically, I understand my self-interest when I reflect on who I am and who made me. Who I am and who made me. And what are the experiences that I go through. So every time I go to a training, I might have had, you know, my husband died, my son went through mental illness, I had a really bad relationship, I had some good things happen. So every time I'm in that training, I'm a different person. I mean, I still have a compass and a core, but it's so important to bring yourself into that conversation. And then you want to have that with other people. So when I go out and do one-on-one interviews, I'm going to say, tell me about you, what's your family, what's your experiences, and when you have those kinds of conversations and you take the time to do that, that is when I experience that organizations are built, communities are built, projects are built, and they're sort of the long haul. They're the long-lasting relationships that is, it's beautiful and wonderful, and it's really hard because it takes time and it takes work. I mean, I spend 45 minutes at least with a person, and you try and do that 10 times, you know, okay, you got 10 new relationships, but when you got to produce 1,000 people, you know, on a consistent basis, but that's the beauty of organizing, and that's why I love it. So, such is life. There you go. All right?
Yeah, does anybody have any questions or anything? Sharon or Jacqueline?
Chit chat.
I think we were chatting all along, it's fine. I think everybody was shouting their things out.
Oh, so when you were in Ohio,
Yes.
can you tell me one of your wins? Like one of the, like, take us through like a process really quickly. 'Cause I love hearing that.
Success story.
So, we were doing organizing in this neighborhood called Union Miles. It was a middle-class African-American community. Most of the people worked at the steel mills, so, you know, union-based. And they were having big issues with their gas bills, where utilities just charged outrageous amounts for their bills, and they would get cut off. And we had this public meeting where the thing is that the meter people would come out and they would sort of guess the meter, like they would estimate it, and then they just, you know, send you these bills. So we had fun public meetings. We made sort of some light of it. But we demanded statewide, actually moved it into a statewide campaign, that Ohio create a natural gas utility fund for heating assistance for the entire state. It was also the time that there was deregulation of gas going, and Standard Oil of Ohio was the main corporation that fueled a lot of the heat, and we knew that they had enormous reserves and a lot of money. So we did a action at their shareholders meeting with 1,000 people, and we went into the shareholders meeting and we had this song going, I'm going to Ohio, going to Ohio, baby, going to Ohio to get us $1 billion. So we went into that. And then they didn't say yes, so then we took another 500 people to a hunt club in Chagrin Valley, where we brought 500 people into a horse show. It was pretty amazing. All the people in their shrimp cocktails and their riding outfits at the hunt club in Chagrin Valley. And we brought people in and basically demanded $1 billion. And we won. We won the demand, we got the home hating assistance program, but it turns out that action, there was all of the women who were married to the Gun Foundation funders and a couple other foundations. So the whole entire neighborhood organizing infrastructure got defunded in 6 months.
Wow.
Because of that action.
Wow.
So it's good to do a power analysis before you do that.
Yeah.
But it was a big win. So that was one of the things. As one in Ohio. So, and I mean, there's other wins that we've had, you know, in Connecticut as well. And so, but that was fun. That was very radical. And it's actually done by a Solinsky style organization called National People's Action. And we did a lot of, you know, direct action and sort of guerrilla theater kind of stuff. So,
Fun stuff.
Fun stuff, yeah.
So, you speak of power, and we speak about, you know, people being frightened by power, and then the sources of power, and so on. So, here we have, just say this room, a room full of women who are willing to learn about how to be a leader, how to become a stronger leader, how to use the power. How do we help the women who have a hard time overcoming the fear of power in order to be part of the power?
Great question. It's a great question, and I think a part of it is you, again, in the organizing field, it's you create cultures of accountability to each other. You create communities of people who are committed to that. Like I said, you know, going through training like this and going through a sense of we all want to be about building our power, the struggles that we have, and sort of a support group, but also accountability. Like, we need to hold each other accountable. So that would be one strategy, giving them, you know, having them involved in a conversation like this, having them go to training.
Power sharing with those individuals.
Creating a community of people who
Giving
have that.
them part of your power to bring them along with power, if that makes any sense.
So, I mean, I don't know how you do that, give your part of your power. I'm not quite sure how you do
If they're
that.
part of the project, and in doing so, I think you're giving them a degree of your power.
So, I mean, I guess it's a semantic thing. I would say you cut a deal.
Well, Ann,
Okay, I'll do this, you do this, let's
well,
see.
Ann,
Yeah.
you're doing it now.
Uh-huh.
You are giving your power to this room in a sense of your experience. So the reason I asked the question is when I was at the Women's March, I was looking for whoever I was supposed to be with. I'm looking at all these pink hats and, you know, trying to find the person. And I turned around and I heard these two people talk. A best friend with her girlfriend and saying, you really need to do this, you need to run, blah, 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 blah. And I turned around and I said, you need to run. You need to run. It might not be for state rep, it might not be for, you know, senator or what have you, but you need to participate and become and learn and educate and empower the power that you have that makes you want to be a leader. And the more we speak to each other like this and go to seminars and events and accountability, you know, making the culture, the stronger we will be, and then we will have the power. And there's always, you do need leaders. I get frustrated when I have a leader who is a leader. I had a leader in my university who was the top of the group, and, you know, I was helping and everything, but they never followed through. They never followed through on their promises, or they would give their minions the work to do and then take the credit for it.
That's right.
Well, and then realizing that person wasn't an organized person. And when you see something like that, how do you give the accountability to that person?
The person's already has power.
I mean, they only,
That person already has power.
I mean, it depends on the organization, depends on so that's what drives me to become more powerful. If I'm in a situation where I have a structure or an organization and things aren't going the way that I think they should be going, I want to work to be more in charge and to create a kind of organization that I think will be living out of my values and will be, a culture of accountability. Is it easy? No. And also, that is why I think it's really important to be clear about why we're doing this and what's in it for us, because we can do those things and it's hard work, and sometimes it's so hard we say, I can't do this anymore and I'm jumping ship. I mean, I don't know if that's part of the dynamic, but what are we committed to? What are we willing to do? Are we clear about it? And just drive it and create it. I mean, that's all I can say. I've done it a couple times successfully and not so successfully.
Thank you.
And speaking of women who run for office, that is actually one of our town councilors, Angie Hockenberry.
Hello, everyone.
We had also Amy Paterna back there, our deputy mayor. Hi. There's Elizabeth. Is she still here or did she leave?
She just, right here.
Bye, Elizabeth. We had another.
Oh, the other one.
Sorry, Liz Pendleton.
Here she's gone.
She left.
I also want to do a little bit of a quick commercial since
Right.
I just want to invite everybody. There's a Martin Luther King April 4th demonstration at the Capitol. Can I send you a flyer about
Yes.
that?
What time?
It's at 4 o'clock. It goes to 4 to 7, but it's in honor of his assassination. And so we're going to the Capitol to demand things like paid family leave, minimum wage, health care for all. So some of the still. So I just wanted to do a little commercial.
I'll definitely put a flyer for that. And these are the type of things that you can get engaged and involved in. I really appreciate everyone coming tonight because we're trying to keep people engaged and informed and keep people talking and motivated. And so I hope you guys keep coming out to not only our events, but more events in the area. I know Drinking Liberally, they meet every Tuesday, once a month in Windsor. And, Manchester has a group, United for Safe Communities.
Safe and inclusive community.
Yes. So, look around in your areas and see what groups there are out there. There's a lot of people out there doing a lot of things, and it's great to see so many people get engaged and involved and keeping the conversation going. So thank you so much. And we still have some food and games, so enjoy.